Super exchange. Oh, come on. Oh no.
The energy inside the arena was different tonight. There was something in the air, something electric and unpredictable that made every fan in attendance feel like they were on the edge of witnessing something monumental. Monday Night Raw had been building toward a massive main event all evening, with Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes set to team up against a common threat that had been plaguing both superstars for weeks. The tension between these two alpha males had been simmering for months, their egos and ambitions constantly putting them at odds, but tonight they were forced to work together for the greater good. Little did anyone know that the night would end in absolute chaos, with the return of one of the most devastating forces in professional wrestling history. The show had been excellent from the opening bell. Multiple storylines were advancing, championships were being defended, and the crowd was hot and engaged with everything happening in front of them. But there was an undercurrent of anticipation running through the entire evening, a sense that something significant was brewing just beneath the surface. The commentators kept hinting at surprises, at unexpected developments, at the unpredictable nature of WWE programming. Social media was buzzing with rumors and speculation about potential returns and debuts, with fans analyzing every hint and clue that might reveal what was coming. Drew McIntyre had been on an absolute tear lately, destroying everyone put in front of him with a viciousness that recalled his most dominant periods. The Scottish Warrior was moving through the WWE roster like a force of nature, his Claymore kick ending matches in seconds, his intensity in promos reaching fever pitch levels. He was a man possessed, driven by his desire to reclaim the WWE Championship and cement his legacy as one of the greatest to ever step into a WWE ring. His promos had been fire, cutting through the typical wrestling rhetoric with raw emotion and genuine passion that resonated with fans worldwide. Cody Rhodes, meanwhile, had been navigating his own complex journey at the top of WWE. The American Nightmare had achieved his lifelong dream of winning the WWE Championship, finishing his story in spectacular fashion. But holding the championship had proven to be even more challenging than winning it, with threats emerging from every direction, with veterans and hungry young stars alike gunning for his position at the top of the mountain. Cody had been working a schedule that would break most men, defending his title with regularity while also appearing at media events and representing WWE across multiple platforms. The tension between Drew and Cody had been one of the most compelling subplots in WWE for months. These were two men with similar goals, similar drives, and similar levels of intensity. They respected each other's abilities, but that respect was tinged with rivalry, with the understanding that eventually they would have to face each other for the ultimate prize. Their interactions had been charged with unspoken competition, with each man trying to prove they were the alpha, the true top star of the company. But tonight, they were united against a common enemy, forced to put aside their differences for one evening. The main event segment began with both men making their separate entrances. Drew came out first, his entrance music echoing through the arena as pyrotechnics exploded around him. The Scottish Warrior looked focused and dangerous, his eyes scanning the crowd before settling on the ring with laser-like intensity. He moved with purpose, every step deliberate, every gesture calculated to project strength and dominance. The crowd responded with a huge pop, appreciating Drew's no-nonsense approach and his commitment to physical dominance. Cody's entrance followed, and the response from the crowd was deafening. The American Nightmare had connected with WWE fans on a level few wrestlers ever achieve, his journey resonating across generations and demographics. As his music hit and he emerged through the entrance, the arena erupted in cheers and singing along with his theme. Cody took his time, acknowledging the fans, playing to the crowd, showing the showmanship that has always been a hallmark of his career. But beneath the pageantry, you could see the focus in his eyes, the understanding that tonight was about business, not entertainment. The two men stood in the ring together, and the tension was palpable even through the television screens. They exchanged words, the microphones not quite picking up the conversation, but their body language telling the story. Drew was animated, gesturing emphatically, clearly laying out strategy or perhaps making it known that he expected Cody to pull his weight. Cody responded with his own intensity, not backing down, making it clear that he was nobody's sidekick or supporting player. The crowd ate it up, loving the dynamic between these two massive stars. Their opponents were supposed to be revealed, with speculation running wild about who would be brave or foolish enough to step into the ring with these two juggernauts. The commentators ran through possibilities, building anticipation, keeping viewers engaged and guessing. Would it be former champions looking to reassert their dominance? Would it be a tag team trying to make a name for themselves by conquering two of WWE's biggest stars? The mystery was part of the appeal, the not knowing adding an extra layer of excitement to the proceedings. But before the opponents could be revealed, the lights in the arena began to flicker. It was subtle at first, just a brief interruption that might have been a technical glitch. But then it happened again, more pronounced this time, the entire arena plunging into darkness for a full second before the lights returned. The crowd began to murmur, uncertain about what was happening, sensing that something unscripted or at least unexpected was occurring. Drew and Cody both looked around, their professional instincts kicking in, trying to assess the situation and prepare for whatever was coming. The third time the lights cut out, they stayed off for several seconds. The darkness was complete, the arena's emergency lighting not yet activated, creating a moment of genuine uncertainty and slight unease in the crowd. When the lights came back on, there was a figure standing on the entrance ramp. The crowd exploded in recognition and shock, the sound of their reaction almost overwhelming in its intensity. Jacob Fatu stood at the top of the ramp, and his presence immediately changed the entire atmosphere in the arena. The Samoan werewolf had been absent from WWE television for months, sidelined by injury and dealing with personal matters. His return had been speculated about constantly, with fans desperate to see one of the most physically impressive and brutal performers in wrestling history back in action. But nobody had expected him tonight, and certainly not in this context. Fatu looked different somehow. There was something in his eyes, a wildness that seemed more pronounced than ever before. His physical condition was remarkable, his body looking even more imposing than when he had left. The months away had apparently been spent training and preparing for this moment, for this return that would shake WWE to its foundation. He wore traditional Samoan warrior markings on his body, a nod to his heritage and a statement about the warrior mentality he was bringing back with him. The commentators were scrambling to make sense of what was happening. They recapped Fatu's history, reminded viewers of his devastating offense and his reputation as one of the most dangerous men in professional wrestling. They speculated about why he was here, what his intentions might be, whether he was aligned with anyone or operating as a lone wolf. The uncertainty added to the drama, with every second that ticked by increasing the tension in the arena. Drew and Cody stood in the ring, both men's postures changing as they recognized the threat that had just appeared. These were not men who scared easily, both had faced every type of opponent imaginable in their long careers, but Jacob Fatu represented something different. He was unpredictable, capable of explosive violence, and moved with a speed and agility that seemed impossible for someone of his size and power. The two WWE stars began communicating, clearly trying to formulate a plan for dealing with this unexpected situation. Fatu began walking down the ramp, his movement deliberate and unhurried. There was no showboating, no playing to the crowd, just a predator moving toward its prey with complete confidence. Each step seemed to echo through the arena, the crowd's noise dying down as everyone watched with rapt attention. The camera work was phenomenal, cutting between shots of Fatu's approach, close-ups of Drew and Cody's faces showing concern and preparation, and wide shots capturing the entire scene. When Fatu reached ringside, he paused. For a long moment, he simply stood there, staring into the ring at the two men waiting for him. The psychological warfare was evident, the mind games already being played before any physical contact had been made. Drew and Cody separated slightly, positioning themselves for optimal defense and offense, understanding that if Fatu entered the ring, they would need every advantage they could create. Then Fatu moved, and the explosion of action was stunning in its suddenness and ferocity. He didn't slide into the ring or climb through the ropes in a traditional fashion. Instead, he leaped onto the apron in one smooth motion, his athleticism on full display, before vaulting over the top rope and immediately launching himself at Drew McIntyre. The attack was so swift and unexpected that Drew barely had time to raise his hands in defense before Fatu was on him. The first blow was a devastating running hip attack that caught Drew square in the chest and sent the Scottish warrior crashing backward into the corner. The impact was brutal, the sound of meat colliding with meat echoing through the arena. Before Drew could recover, Fatu was unleashing a series of strikes that were horrifying in their intensity. These weren't the worked punches typical of wrestling matches. These looked and sounded real, each one landing with force that made the crowd gasp. Cody tried to intervene, rushing at Fatu from behind, but the Samoan werewolf had been aware of his positioning the entire time. Without even looking, Fatu ducked Cody's attempted clothesline and immediately pivoted, catching Cody with a super kick that connected perfectly under the American Nightmare's chin. The impact of the move sent Cody sprawling backward, his body going temporarily limp from the force of the blow. It was a statement of Fatu's ring awareness and his ability to handle multiple opponents simultaneously. Drew had recovered enough to charge out of the corner, looking to use his size and power advantage to regain control of the situation. He launched himself at Fatu with a shoulder tackle designed to take the Samoan down. But Fatu absorbed the impact, his feet sliding backward but his body remaining upright, and immediately countered with a head but that was sickening in its violence. The crack of skull meeting skull could be heard throughout the arena, and Drew staggered backward, clearly stunned by the impact. The crowd was in absolute pandemonium. Chants of "Holy shit" began echoing through the venue as fans processed what they were witnessing. This wasn't a typical return segment with a calculated attack and quick exit. This was Jacob Fatu systematically destroying two of WWE's top stars with a level of brutality that was genuinely shocking. The commentators were trying to put over the significance of what was happening while also conveying appropriate concern for the well-being of Drew and Cody. Fatu turned his attention back to Cody, who was trying to pull himself up using the ropes. The Samoan werewolf charged across the ring and delivered another hip attack, this time in the corner, sandwiching Cody between his massive body and the turnbuckles. The American Nightmare crumpled to the canvas, the air driven from his lungs by the devastating move. Fatu pulled him back to his feet, not to show mercy, but to deliver more punishment, and launched Cody across the ring with an Irish whip that sent him crashing into the opposite corner with tremendous force. Drew was attempting to mount another offensive, showing the heart and toughness that had defined his career. Despite being clearly hurt and stunned, the Scottish warrior refused to stay down. He grabbed Fatu from behind, locking in a rear waistlock and attempting to execute a German suplex that would give him some breathing room and momentum. But Fatu's base was too strong, his center of gravity too low. He blocked the attempt, threw a back elbow that caught Drew in the temple, and then executed a standing switch that put him in control. What happened next was a display of raw power that had the entire arena in awe. Fatu lifted Drew McIntyre, all 265 pounds of him, and executed a perfect German suplex that sent the Scottish warrior flying through the air before crashing onto the back of his head and shoulders. The impact shook the ring and Drew rolled through, ending up in a heap near the ropes. The fact that Fatu could throw around someone of Drew's size with such apparent ease was a testament to his incredible strength and technique. Cody was struggling to his feet again, showing the same resilience that had defined his character since returning to WWE. The American Nightmare was known for his ability to absorb punishment and keep fighting, for his refusal to quit no matter the odds. But tonight, he was facing something beyond what he had encountered before. As he turned around, Fatu was already charging at him, building momentum for another devastating offensive maneuver. The pop-up Samoan drop that followed was executed with perfection. Fatu caught Cody in midair, showcased him for a moment to demonstrate his control, and then drove him into the canvas with authority. Cody's body bounced from the impact before settling motionless on the mat. The crowd's reaction was a mixture of amazement at the athleticism and power displayed and genuine concern for Cody's well-being. Medical personnel at ringside were beginning to stir, uncertain about whether they should intervene. But Fatu was far from finished. His assault had a methodical quality to it, as if he was working through a checklist of destruction. He pulled Cody up again, positioning him near the corner. Then, showcasing the agility that made him so unique among super heavyweights, Fatu climbed to the second rope. The crowd knew what was coming, and the anticipation built to a fever pitch as Fatu measured his target. The moonsault that followed was breathtaking in its execution. Fatu's body rotated through the air with surprising grace for someone of his size, and he came crashing down across Cody's chest and midsection with devastating force. The impact drove every bit of air from Cody's lungs, and the American Nightmare's body went completely limp. The move was a statement, a demonstration that Fatu possessed not just power and intensity, but also the aerial abilities that made him a complete performer. Drew had rolled out of the ring, trying to recover and reassess the situation. His face was already showing signs of bruising from the earlier headbutt, and he moved gingerly, clearly feeling the effects of the German suplex. But the warrior instinct in him wouldn't allow him to simply leave his temporary partner alone in the ring with this monster. Drew began searching under the ring, looking for anything he could use to even the odds, to turn the momentum in their favor. He emerged with a steel chair, and the crowd's reaction was mixed. Some cheered the potential for more violence and for Drew to fight back with any means necessary. Others recognized that introducing weapons might only escalate an already dangerous situation. Drew slid back into the ring, chair in hand, his eyes locked on Fatu with murderous intent. The Scottish warrior was done playing defense. It was time to take the fight to the Samoan werewolf. But Fatu was waiting for him. As Drew swung the chair, Fatu ducked under it with surprising agility, the weapon passing harmlessly over his head. Before Drew could reset and swing again, Fatu delivered a superkick that knocked the chair back into Drew's own face. The impact was sickening, the sound of steel meeting skull making everyone in the arena wince. Drew dropped the chair and staggered, blood beginning to trickle from his forehead where the edge of the chair had split the skin. Fatu picked up the chair that Drew had dropped, and the look in his eyes suggested that the violence was about to escalate even further. The commentators were pleading for officials to come and stop this before someone was seriously injured. But the backstage officials seemed hesitant to intervene, perhaps understanding that getting between Jacob Fatu and his targets in this moment would only put themselves in danger. The chair shot to Drew's back was brutal and unforgiving. The sound echoed through the arena like a gunshot, and Drew's body arched in agony before collapsing forward. Fatu hit him again, and then again, each chair shot landing with precision and force across Drew's back and shoulders. The Scottish warrior's body jerked with each impact, his face contorted in pain, his hands reaching backward in a futile attempt to protect himself from the assault. Cody was beginning to stir, his championship heart not allowing him to stay down even after the brutal moonsault. But as he pushed himself up to his hands and knees, Fatu turned his attention and the steel chair toward the American Nightmare. The first chair shot caught Cody across the back, and the champion collapsed back to the canvas. The second shot was even harder, Fatu putting his full body weight behind the swing, the chair wrapping around Cody's back from the force of the impact. The crowd was in shock. These were two of WWE's most protected stars, two men who were positioned at the very top of the card, and they were being absolutely decimated by Jacob Fatu. The systematic destruction of both Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes was sending a clear message to everyone in WWE and everyone watching at home. Jacob Fatu was back, and he was more dangerous than ever before. Fatu finally dropped the chair, but only because he had something even more devastating in mind. He pulled Drew up, positioning him near the corner where the steel steps met the ring post on the outside. The Samoan werewolf's intentions became clear, and the crowd began making noise, trying to will Drew to escape. knowing that whatever Fatu had planned would be catastrophic. Fatu lifted Drew onto his shoulders in a fireman's carry position, showcasing his strength once again by controlling the Scottish warrior's dead weight. Then, with a running start, he executed a devastating Samoan drop that sent Drew crashing from inside the ring, over the top rope, and through the announce table on the outside. The table exploded on impact, monitors and debris flying in all directions. Drew's body lay motionless in the wreckage, and the crowd's reaction was a mixture of holy shit chants and genuine gasps of horror. Medical personnel finally began rushing toward the ring, understanding that this had gone beyond what anyone could have anticipated. But Fatu wasn't done. He turned his attention back to Cody Rhodes, who was barely conscious in the center of the ring. The Samoan werewolf had one more statement to make, one more exclamation point to put on his return.